Okay, and we're back. So let's go take a look at our schedule really quick. Yesterday we went over Flex, its different uses, how we can use it to our advantage. We saw that it's a little bit better than inline block. And we did a demonstration of one of our projects that we need to submit here. Today we are going to work with a new rule, a new CSS rule called position. So, in the afternoon, I'm going to recreate a website. We're going to do some code reviews, and today, by the end of the day, complete the profile page and the user card. Now, for these assignments, you may use position absolute or this position rule, not necessarily absolute, but this position rule. But generally, 99% of the time, you're not going to use position at all. We want you to be aware of how it works. So we will do a demonstration. It will go over the rules, but it's not something that you're going to be using often. Use it very sparingly, because if you get to using it too often, it will create more problems than it solves. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and move forward along. So before I get to position, I want to just brief us on CSS resets. Something we already went over, but as you can see here, with this wildcard selector, if you set the padding and margin to 0, it's going to give a 0 value, so that any sort of tags that we would put in our HTML page, like an H1 tag, that has those rules already preset, would be now set to 0, so that we can style our page exactly the way we want without having to look into what's already being preset. Okay, there's a couple more resets than just setting the padding and margin to 0. If you click this link on the platform, it will take you to this website. And this website has a list of resets here. You can set the padding and margin and border to 0, outline, padding, margin, and border. The difference between outline and border is that border adds some pixels to the frame of the div that you're adding to. Border does that. Outline only outlines it, so it's not going to add any depth to the box. It's just going to highlight where the end of the box is there. So let me just take a brief us here on the box model. So this is the border. Anything outside the border is the margin. And so an outline will not add actual depth, but if you add border, it will. So setting all 4 would be a even more of a reset, and here it's just going deeper into reset. You don't need to know this necessarily, but it's there if you ever need to set it to 0. Okay, so that's a helpful link. And now let's go ahead and get to the heart of our lesson here, position. Let's go ahead and brief ourselves on what these mean. So there's 3 position properties that we're going to be dealing with today. There's position absolute, there's position relative, and position fixed. And we'll get into the difference of what these mean, but they all stem from the position rule. And I have taken this boilerplate and the CSS, and I'm going to work with this to demonstrate how exactly this works. I also have another example, so we can have more than one reference, so that we can check here together how we can take advantage of the position property here. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull up my Visual Studio Code. And here it is. So I have 2 projects here. One is within the folder and one is outside the folder. This one that's outside the folder is what we're receiving from the platform. And then in the folder, I have something else that I'm going to show you. So let's deal with this one first, okay? If I go ahead and open this, I will see, oh, no, that's the other one. Go ahead and open this fresh. This is it. Okay. What we're going to be manipulating here is this alert box area that you see here. It is this area. So this main page here, the title and the lorem ipsum is what you will see on the Visual Studio Code as soon as I turn to it. But this box here is what we're going to be playing with. Okay. Imagine you go to a website and you want someone to subscribe to your email newsletter before they explore a bit more, or you want them to acknowledge the cookies that you're going to be checking. So you're going to be checking their keeping track of website data. You want some sort of acknowledgement to go over the rest of the page. So sometimes you need to do that with a position property, and we'll show you how. So let's go ahead and flip over to our Visual Studio Code. So you see here, there's the title. There's this message here that contains our alert, and then also the text. And so if I go to the CSS file for this one here, let's bring this on the right. And this I want to be on the left. If I fully expand this message here that I've targeted by the message ID, I'm going to be changing here. So let's go over each of the position roles. And so I'm going to use a bit of help from the internet here. I'm going to grab this website. And this is from W3 Schools. So it's a good reference, reliable. And in this website, you can check here yourself how this position works. I won't do this example yet. I'm just going to go over the definitions here. So the first one we should do is, let's do absolute since it's first on the list here, alphabetical too. The element is positioned relative to its first position ancestor element. Okay. As we go, sorry?
Hey Josh, is the position preset to something before?
No, you don't need to worry about that. No. It's only going to be set as long as you say position
Okay.
and then the rule.
Okay.
So we're going to go over each rule a couple times so that we see the difference, okay? But the first one, just know the element is positioned relative to its first positioned ancestor element. So let's go ahead and see what our page looks like when we affect the position. And I'm going to change it here to absolute. I'm going to open the page on the, no, where'd it go? I think it disappeared on me here. Let me just open it again. Copy path. Okay. So here we have the page. And I'm going to uncomment this rule. And along with uncommenting the rule, I'm going to set some pixels amounts. So first, I'm going to uncomment the rule, refresh, and then I'm going to say left 50 pixels. So right now, position absolute and left are the only rules being applied. and it moved a little bit to the left there. Okay, if I move it to the right, you'll see it move as well. And as you can see here, it's moving irregardless of where the other tags and divs on the page would be. So normally they're going to respect each other's space, but in this case, if we use position and we set an amount here, I can also say from the top, and it'll move a little bit down from, as the rule says, relative to its first positioned ancestor element. So it's going by what parent it's in. So right now, the parent of this message is the container. The container holds everything, the H1, the P tags, and the div that holds the message. Okay, so we got to see a little bit of how that works. Maybe we'll increase the amount just a little bit more. Let's change it to 400. And it'll move all the way down from the top 400 pixels from its container. Okay. If we want to see in depth where the containers are, let's do this. Outline 1 pixel solid red. So that's a little bit hard to see. And I will also give this one here. Instead of solid red, I'm going to give it blue. Okay. So relative to the top of the container, I'm going to change it back. Now position absolute works this way. Actually, I'm going to just remove these outlines because it's a little bit messy, to be honest. Okay, now let's move on to the next rule. Position fixed. The element is positioned relative to the browser window. So it's going to take the whole entire window and move itself relative to that position. So I'm going to change here from absolute to fixed. I'm going to then say from the top, 50 pixels. And I'm going to take away this top 50 pixels, adding it, and removing it. So originally, this div should live here, right above this text. But when we say position top fixed 50 pixels, it'll reposition itself from the view of the window. So the whole entire window now is its playing field. Okay, if I remove fixed, remove top 50, we'll see where it should belong. It belongs here. And now if I add fixed again, it'll move itself from the top 50 pixels. As you can see, if I say from the left as well, 250 and 250. Well, let's take a look at how this works. So I can move the page here. Everything else will move, but position fixed says this is not going to move. This is only going to stay from the left of the window 250 pixels. And if I move the window from the left, it'll always stay 250 pixels from the left. Do you guys see me moving it? Sometimes when I see you guys share.
So what about vertically?
Vertically, then we say from the top. I'm going to do 400 pixels. So now from the top and from the left, if I move it from the top, it's not going to move at all. It's fixed from the top and from the left. If I do it from the right as well, it would be fixed from the right. So how can we use this? Well, this is more so for like creating a video game or something where the character doesn't move at all. It's a fixed little character and the rest of the world moves around it. Okay, that's not really relevant to what we're doing, but that's position fixed. Again, I'll go over each one and I'll go over several different examples on how that works, okay? So that's position fixed. Let's get a status check on how we're feeling about position absolute and fixed. Great. Okay, now let's do the last one. Relative. So Christian mentioned something here about relative already. So take a look at what he says. It would be better than absolute for these assignments. So let's take a look here. So if I change this to relative now, and I read the rule, the element is positioned relative to its normal position. So let's look at the normal position. This is the normal position. Now, if I say relative, I want to say from the left, I want it to be 250 pixels. Now it moves 250 pixels from where it was originally, not by the container, not by the window, but where it would have been originally. And if I add top to it, now it's going from the top 50 pixels. If I say top 250 pixels, there it goes.
Hey Joshua, quick question for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
I don't know if I missed it, but when we speak about with and then inherit, where does that come from again? Now that I see it there.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Yeah, so I do see here that you have the with inherit. I don't know if you already, I don't know if I missed it, but can you speak about that a little bit again, please, if you don't mind?
So this specifies the width of the content, okay, or the border area. Okay, so it's not essential to learning this. I will go over a different example here that we won't use
Okay.
this inherit, but
Okay.
it's inheriting the width of the content area. So the content area is, let's see here, let me reset this. So the container it's in, it's inheriting that width there, this whole box.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and continue. So we know that relative is going to be relative to where it would have been originally. Absolute is from the container, and fixed is from the window. So those are the three big differences. I'm going to show you guys another example here of how this works. So let's go ahead and do that. I have these three boxes here, okay? This maybe seems a little bit more familiar to what we're usually working with. I'm going to go ahead and close everything here. Close all my tabs. On the right-hand side, I'm going to say CSS. Let me just do format document. Okay. So I have a simple body here. And I have a container within the body. And within the container, I have three divs, box 1, box 2, and box 3. Okay. And for box 1, 2, and 3, I've given the height of 100 pixels, width 100 pixels, margin 10 to give some space between the boxes. And I've said inline block for each of them. Okay. And actually, I don't even need to put this. It's a little bit confusing there. But okay, we get the picture. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Okay. So here we have our 3 boxes, and I'm going to add some position to each one here. I'm going to add position absolute. So to the container, I'm going to put position absolute and left 300 pixels, 100 pixels. So now the whole container shifts over. It no longer is going to take up the whole entire width of the page, and it's shifting over from the body that was living in. Okay, that's how that works for the container. Now let's go over how it would go for the individual boxes. So I'm going to move box 2 around. I'm going to say position absolute. So who can tell me what position absolute is going to move it from?
The ends of the page.
No,
Lower.
what is position absolute moving it relative from?
The top corner.
The parent,
Right.
right?
Yes. Thank you. Yes. So let's see what this means. So I'm going to move it from the parent top 40 pixels. And when I do that, it ignores the rest of the boxes ignore the position that the pink box here was taking up. So when it moves from the top, everything shifted over. It's only now relative to the parent. Everything else that the container was containing now moves over. Okay. If I remove from the top and where'd it go? I gotta take away this rule first. Okay, if I say position absolute and I say now from the left 250 pixels, now the blue one has disappeared because it's moved from the container to the left. The rest of the boxes have ignored its position, and now the pink one is actually over the blue one. So as if the pink one now it doesn't exist to the green and blue boxes, and that is why it's only moving left from its parent, which is this yellow area, and then now it's overlapping the blue area. Okay, let's get a status
Hey,
check.
Josh,
Yes.
another question for that. Is it because the blue one went to the same position as the pink one, and then it just like
Yeah,
because the pink one comes before the blue one?
Yeah. See, if I
So
remove
if it was the other, yeah.
if I remove the background color, so now the pink one is not visible by the background color, the pink one is still there on top of this
Right.
blue one. But whenever we use position absolute, the rest of the divs in the container ignore the pink one when we use position absolute. Okay.
So if you just shifted it over a couple
Okay.
pixels, would you be able to see it
Yeah.
just underneath? Okay.
So I'll put it back in and I will increase it by like 50 pixels. And now it's
Okay.
still overlapping the blue, but the blue is ignoring the position that pink was originally taking, because now it's only positioned to the yellow container.
So position is really just focused on one of those boxes.
Yeah, wherever we apply the rule position, that's what we're going to be moving. That's the div we're moving. Okay, I didn't get
I
a
have
good
question
set.
as well.
Uh-huh.
So is the pink box 2 on top of the blue box only because in your HTML code box 2 came before box 3, or is it because of the absolute?
It's because of the absolute. So without
Okay.
absolute, the blue box is going to respect where the pink box is. It's say, I'm not going to take up your space. But as soon as we apply absolute, the pink box just moves relative to the yellow containers area position.
Right.
And
So-
the blue box moves to where this pink box would have been.
So with the blue box, if you did a position absolute at left 120, theoretically, it would be under the pink box, or would it show above the pink box still?
Let's do it. So position absolute. And you say from the left 120?
Yeah, that should put it over on top of pink.
Does it need to be pixels?
You forgot
Ah.
a pixel.
There we go. Okay, so it ignores how it's declared in the HTML. Just
Yeah.
because box 2 came first, it doesn't matter. Gotcha.
Let's get a status check here. Okay.
That's the kind of the running theme on why position is so frowned upon, is because it doesn't rely on the flow of HTML, right? You can't look at the HTML and have an understanding of how the elements are going to be laid out when using position, because it takes it outside the flow of HTML, right? And so that's a problem, because now that element in our HTML could be anywhere on the screen. It could be positioned anywhere. It could look like anything. And that's not helpful for us. And so that's why generally when we're positioning things, we want to use code that's, it's going to be clear just by looking at, our HTML structure roughly on how things are going to be laid out and structured, if that kind of makes sense.
Yes. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, that's why we don't want to use it. It's going to get too messy for us to interpret. I've linked this W3 schools here in case you want to save that to your bookmarks. Now let's move from position absolute to position, let's see, I want to say position fixed. Okay, so let's go to fixed. So who can tell me what fixed moves the position relative to?
Onto the browser window.
Yes. So now let's see what that means for us when we apply it to the pink. So right now it's back to normal. And if I go ahead and do left for the pink one, it's in the same place.
You need to uncomment the position fixed, right?
Oh, shoot. There we go. It's bad. Thank you, Peter.
Also, I have a question real quick. So you said using position is generally frowned upon, but earlier you also said they use it in stuff like games. So what's the differentiation? Like, when is it okay?
Not for building web pages. Games is another matter. So for building web pages, and there is some occasions that you can use it, and I'll go over when. So let's just focus on how it works, and then I'll get to that. So if I do fixed left 150, it still ignores, the blue box is still going to ignore the position of the pink, and it's going to move over 150 pixels from the window. So let's see if I can demonstrate this here. No, it's too small. Let's just move it even further here. So now it's 350 from the left of the window. And if I say top, I can even move this yellow one a little bit, but I don't want to get this positions mixed up a little bit too much. So from the top, from the left, it is moved 350 pixels from the left, and from the top 40. So this it's easy to understand, but we know that the rest of the divs are not going to respect the place it was taking. Now let's do this for the last position rule. And that's going to be relative here. So let's go ahead and move relative. The element is positioned relative to its normal position. And now from the left, I'm going to move it 250 pixels. And as you can see here, its original position is still respected. So the blue's not going to move over. But the pink is going to move over 250 pixels to the left of where it was originally. We can also do it from the top as well. So relative keeps everything in its place except the div that you're moving specifically, whereas the other two, the surrounding divs, are not going to respect the space it was originally taking up. Do we understand this concept? Can I get a status check, please? Okay. So yeah, let's see what Christian says here. Even for browser games, traditional positioning methods aren't used anymore. So take his word for it. Don't even need to use it for making games on browsers. Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad we get this concept. Now that you understand it, don't use it. Okay. It is a quick way to move a div around the page, but it's not a recommended way to do it. Now let's see what situations we might use this rule. And I'm going to expand this here for that. Let's take a look at this user card here. In this user card, we have this image, this profile image on the left here. And it is somewhere in between the div on top, which is the teal div, and the div below it, which is like the main body of the card. And how do we have this area in here like this? We can use a position rule for this, but this is the only scenario in your assignments that you may use this way. Okay. And let me give you another hint here. You don't want to put this image here, this profile image, on the bottom half, because there's already content that's supposed to be there. You want to put it on the teal half above and then move it using the relative positioning that way. And then you'll see, once whatever rule you pick, whatever position rule you pick, how the content on the bottom is affected. Okay. Maybe one other way you can do this positioning is on a later assignment. Let's take a look here if I can find it. This is for tomorrow's work. Let's see here. Not this one. This is something else. Look at this cookie at the bottom of the page. If we want our cookie, notice the I accept to always be from the bottom of the page, what position rule would we use? That anywhere you scroll on the page, that cookie notice is going to be there. Can anyone tell me?
Fixed.
Absolutely.
Or
Fixed, right?
Yeah,
Because
fixed.
fixed is relative to the window. It's relative to the window. Now, if this whole thing was the web page, if there's nothing to scroll down to, and this was the whole container, maybe we can use another rule. But this generally, and you don't even have to use, in this case, for building this project, you don't have to use position at all. It's just the next section on the page is this cookie section. So you don't have to use position at all. But theoretically, if you had a large page with a lot of content and you wanted that cookie to always be there at the bottom, no matter where they scroll, then you can use that position rule to do that. Okay. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, great. Well, great job, guys. Now that we understand this concept, like I said, use it very sparingly. Try not to use it at all. And let's go over the calendar really quick here. This afternoon, I'm going to recreate a website from scratch and show you guys all the cool HTML and CSS rules we've learned so far to build a professional website from scratch. And then after that, we're going to do lab demos. Today's work is going to be the profile page and user card. These are going to get even harder in difficulty, but I've given you a big hint already. And that concludes today's lecture. Thank you guys very much for listening.
Hey, I had a quick question, Josh.
Yes.
About the profile pic assignment.
Yeah.
It does mention on there some about group work. Do you want us to break out in groups for that assignment and kind of break it up into pieces, or do you want us to do it individually?
Where does it say that? Yeah, you can. You're here at the dojo. You know, we want to use the 20-minute rule. So if you do get stuck on a certain place, it is good to rely on each other's help. You know, because you're building this at the same time. But be very careful not to copy your neighbor's work, because there's a fine line. Try not to go over that line.
Yeah, working together and sharing code are kind of two different things. You can talk together about the concepts and how you're going to approach it, you know, how you're breaking it down into the different divs, the different boxes and things like that. But actually writing the code is something you should be doing separately. You know, you should each be writing your own code, but you can use the same ideas and you can discuss the same ideas on how you're going to tackle it.
And let's say if you are doing the pair programming and maybe like some of you actually share the screen and you can see the code at some point, if your code is going to look very similar, something like that, please try to write it like at the beginning of the code. Maybe I commented something like that saying like, oh, this is a pair programming with like which few students, so that we know. Because when we see the assignments, if we see that, oh, this assignment looks exactly the same as the other one, then that will like make us feel like, oh, is it like copying or something like that? So if it is really done in a pair programming and your code going to look very similar, then make sure that you have some comments at the beginning of your assignment so that we know. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you guys. All right, I'll be in my room. If anyone needs us, be sure to, you know, bother us. Don't hesitate. Don't be shy. And thank you guys again.
And did you have preset rooms? Or I was typing some out, but if you already got them preset, you can open them.
Thank you, Christian.
Okay, then I'll just finish typing.